The plasma chains burned against Zara's violet skin as she hung suspended in the human interrogation chamber. Her forearms were spread wide, each wrist locked in energy shackles that sent jolts of pain through her nervous system every few seconds. The Catherine commander had been captured 3 cycles ago during the failed assault on the human colony of New Terra, and she knew what came next. Humans were savages. Everyone in the Galactic Coalition knew this truth. They were a species that had clawed their way up from a death world, learning cruelty and violence before they learned to walk upright. When the Coalition first encountered them 50 years ago, the humans had been dismissed as primitive barbarians, who would never amount to anything significant in galactic affairs. How wrong they had been. The war had lasted 12 years now, and the humans had proven to be far more dangerous than anyone imagined. They fought with a ruthlessness that shocked even hardened military commanders. They used weapons that other species considered too brutal. They never surrendered, never showed mercy, and never forgot a slight against them. Zara had seen the aftermath of human attacks on coalition ships. Bodies torn apart by kinetic weapons that fired solid metal at impossible speeds. Entire crews suffocated when humans vented their atmosphere into space. Children found dead in escape pods that humans had targeted specifically to send a message. The door to her cell hissed open, and Zara forced herself to lift her head despite the pain. A human male entered, and her blood ran cold. He was tall by human standards, maybe 2 meters, with the pale skin that marked him as coming from one of the ice worlds. His dark hair was cut short in the military style, and his blue eyes held the cold calculation she had learned to fear in human faces. But what terrified her most were his hands. Large, strong, with long fingers that looked capable of incredible violence. She had heard the stories from other prisoners who had survived human interrogation. How they used those hands to break bones slowly, one at a time. How they could apply just enough pressure to joints to cause agony without permanent damage. How they seemed to take pleasure in the slow destruction of their enemies. The human pulled up a chair and sat down facing her, his movements casual and unhurried. He wore the black uniform of human military intelligence, with silver rank insignia that marked him as a major. A datapad rested in his lap, and he studied it for several long minutes before looking up at her. "Commander Zara Veltar of the Catherine 9th Fleet," he said in perfect Catherine, his pronunciation flawless. 43 years old, veteran of 18 major engagements, holder of the Silver Star of Valor and the Distinguished Service Cross, married to Sub-Commander Cole Veltar, mother of 2 children. Zara's breathing quickened. They knew about her family. Of course they did. Humans were nothing if not thorough in their research. She wondered if they had already sent assassination teams after Cole and her younglings. It would be exactly like them to eliminate an enemy's family as psychological warfare. "My name is Major David Chun," the human continued, setting down his datapad. "I'm going to be conducting your debriefing. I will tell you nothing," Zara managed to say through gritted teeth. "Do your worst, monster. I am prepared to die with honor." Major Chun tilted his head slightly, studying her with those cold blue eyes. "Monster?" he repeated, seeming almost amused. "Is that what they tell you about us in coalition briefings?" "I have seen your handiwork," Zara spat. "The Delarian merchant ship you destroyed. 300 civilians, including children. You showed them no mercy." "The Delarian ship was carrying weapons to coalition forces," Chun replied calmly. "Military supplies disguised as humanitarian aid. We gave them 6 warnings to submit to inspection. They chose to run instead. You killed children." "War kills children," Chun said, his voice still level. "But let's talk about something else. Tell me about the attack on the civilian station at Kepler 442. Zara felt her stomach clench. Kepler 442 had been a disaster. Intelligence had told them it was a military research facility, but when they arrived, they found families. Human families with their small, fragile offspring. The attack had been called off, but not before 17 civilians had died in the initial bombardment. "That was a mistake," she said quietly. 17 people died, Chun continued, including a 5-year-old girl named Emma Rodriguez. She was in the station school when your plasma cannons punched through the hull. The decompression killed her instantly. Zara closed her eyes, trying not to see the small human face that had haunted her dreams for months. I said it was a mistake. We withdrew as soon as we realized our error. But you came back 3 days later and finished the job? No. Zara's eyes snapped open. That is a lie. I ordered the complete withdrawal. We never returned to that system. Chun picked up his datapad again and scrolled through it. Coalition forces under Admiral Vexfer destroyed the station completely 72 hours after your initial attack. No survivors. The blood drained from Zara's face. She had not known. Admiral Vexfer had told the fleet that the station had been evacuated, that it was simply a military target cleanup operation. But she could see in Chin's eyes that he was telling the truth. You didn't know? Chun observed. Interesting. Admiral Vexfer told us it was empty, Zara whispered. He said the humans had evacuated everyone after our first attack. 347 people died in that second attack, Chun said. Men, women, children, elderly? Your admiral left no one alive. Zara felt sick. She had served under Vexfer for 5 years, had trusted him, had believed in his vision of honorable warfare. To learn that he had lied to her, that he had committed such an atrocity and hidden it from his own commanders, shattered something fundamental in her worldview. Why are you telling me this? She asked. Chun leaned forward in his chair. Because I want you to understand something, Commander. This war has made monsters of all of us. Your people, mine, everyone caught in between. But maybe it doesn't have to stay that way. What do you mean? I mean that there might be another way forward. A way that doesn't end with the complete destruction of both our species. Zara stared at him, searching his face for signs of deception. Humans were known to be skilled liars, capable of elaborate psychological manipulation. But something in his eyes seemed different from what she expected. There was no cruelty there, no enjoyment of her pain. Instead, she saw something that looked almost like sadness. You expect me to believe that you want peace? She asked. After everything your kind has done? What I want, Chun said carefully, is to find a way to end this war before it destroys us all. And I think you might want the same thing. I am a soldier of the Coalition. My duty is to fight until victory or death. Even knowing what you know now about Admiral Vexfer? About the lies you've been told? Zara was quiet for a long moment. The truth was that doubt had been growing in her mind for months before her capture. Too many operations that didn't make sense. Too many civilian casualties that were dismissed as acceptable losses. Too many orders that seemed designed more to inflict pain than to achieve military objectives. What are you proposing? She asked finally. Chin stood up and walked to the small window in the cell wall. Outside, Zara could see the blue-green world of New Terra. Peaceful and beautiful despite the war raging across the galaxy. There's going to be a major coalition offensive in the Vega system in 6 weeks, he said. 3 full battle fleets, including the Cathron 7th that your husband commands. Zara's hearts began racing. How could the humans know about that? The operational details had been classified at the highest levels. It's a trap, Chun continued. Admiral Vexfer has been feeding your fleet movements to us for the past 8 months. That's impossible, Zara breathed. Vexfer is a hero of the Coalition. He would never betray us to humans. Chun turned back to face her. Vexfer is playing all sides against each other. He's feeding information to us, to the Delarians, to the Proximan Syndicate. He wants this war to continue because it gives him power. And in 6 weeks he's going to send your husband and 50,000 Coalition soldiers into a killing field. The room seemed to spin around Zara. If what Chun was saying was true, then everything she believed about the war, about her command structure, about her duty, was built on lies. But the alternative was to trust a human, and that went against every instinct she had developed over 12 years of warfare. Prove it, she said. Chun returned to his chair and activated his datapad. A holographic display appeared in the air between them, showing star charts and fleet movements. This is the planned attack route for the Coalition offensive. Three-pronged assault, with the Catherine 7th taking point at the main shipping lane. Zara studied the display. It was exactly the plan she had helped develop 3 months ago, down to the smallest tactical details. Information that no human should have had access to. This could be a fabrication, she said weakly. It could be, Chun agreed. But you know it's not. You know those tactical markers, that formation structure? You helped design this attack plan yourself. Zara closed her eyes again. Everything was crumbling around her. Her faith in her commanders, her understanding of the war, her certainty about who the real enemy was. "Why are you showing me this?" she whispered. "Because I believe you're a good soldier who was given Ba." 3 days passed before Major Chun returned to Zara's cell. During those long hours, she had wrestled with impossible choices, her mind cycling between duty and doubt, loyalty and logic. The plasma chains had been removed, replaced with simple, magnetic restraints that allowed her to sit in a real chair. Small comfort, but comfort nonetheless. When Chun entered this time, he carried 2 cups of steaming liquid and wore civilian clothes instead of his military uniform. The gesture seemed deliberately casual, almost friendly. "Catherine T," he said, offering her one of the cups. "We analyzed your nutritional requirements from your medical scans. This should be safe for you to drink." Zara accepted the cup with suspicious hands, inhaling the familiar aroma of home. It smelled exactly like the blend her mother used to make, with notes of zephyr fruit and mountain herbs. She took a careful sip and felt her eyes widen in surprise. It was perfect. "How do you know this recipe?" she asked. Chun sat down across from her, cradling his own cup. "We've had cultural exchange programs for the past 30 years. Before the war, humans and Kethrans worked together on dozens of projects. Scientific research, artistic collaborations, even some joint military exercises. That was before we knew what you really were, was it?" Chun asked quietly. "Or was it before someone convinced both our species that we had to be enemies?" Zara studied his face carefully. There was something different about him when he wasn't in uniform, something less threatening. He looked younger, more tired, almost vulnerable. "You said Admiral Vexfer has been feeding you information," she said finally. "Prove it." Chun reached into a pocket and pulled out a small data crystal. He inserted it into a portable holoprojector, and suddenly the air between them was filled with Admiral Vexfer's image. But he wasn't giving orders or making speeches. He was sitting in what looked like a luxury apartment, speaking casually to someone off camera. "The Catherine 7th will move on schedule," the holographic Vexfer was saying. "Veltar's husband commands the lead squadron. He's competent but predictable. Your ambush should be quite successful." Zara felt like she had been punched in the stomach. There was no mistaking that voice, those mannerisms, that distinctive scar across Vexfer's soft temple from an old battle wound. This was really him discussing her husband's death like it was a business transaction. "When was this recorded?" she whispered. 6 days ago, Chun replied. "Our intelligence network has been tracking Vexfer's movements for months. He meets with our contact every 2 weeks, always in different locations, always selling information about coalition operations." "Who is he talking to? Who is your contact?" Chun hesitated for a moment, then touched another control. The image pulled back to reveal the second figure in the room. Zara gasped in recognition. "Commander Vexari of Dalarian Intelligence," Chun explained. "Vexfer isn't just betraying the coalition to us. He's playing all 3 major powers against each other, selling secrets to whoever pays the most." Zara set down her teacup with shaking hands. Vexari was a war criminal by any measure, responsible for the attack on the civilian transport ships in the Centauri system that had killed thousands of refugees. To see her own admiral collaborating with such a creature made her feel physically ill. "There's more," Chun said gently, advancing the recording. Now Vexfer was leaning forward, his expression intense. "The human prisoner Veltar, she has access to the complete battle plans for the Vega offensive. If she breaks under interrogation, it could compromise everything. Perhaps it would be better if she didn't survive her captivity." The recording ended, leaving Zara staring at empty air. Her own admiral, the being she had served loyally for 5 years, was casually discussing her murder to protect his schemes. He ordered my death, she said numbly. He did, Chun confirmed. The message was transmitted to this facility yesterday. We were supposed to make it look like you died during interrogation. But you didn't? No, we didn't. Zara looked up at Chun, studying his face with new eyes. Why? What do humans gain by keeping me alive? Chun was quiet for a long moment, staring into his tea. When he spoke, his voice was soft, almost painful. My daughter is about the same age as your youngest, he said finally. 7 years old. Bright, curious, always asking questions about everything. Before the war started, she had a Cathern friend named Tilla. They used to play together in the colony playgrounds, sharing toys and stories. He looked up, meeting Zara's eyes directly. When the first coalition attacks came, Tilla's family was evacuated. My daughter cried for weeks, asking when her friend was coming back. She couldn't understand why people who had been neighbors suddenly had to be enemies. Children don't understand the complexities of war, Zara said carefully. Don't they? Shun asked. Or do children understand something that we adults have forgotten? That the person across from you is still a person, regardless of what planet they come from. Zara thought about her own younglings, about how they had asked similar questions when the war began. Why couldn't they visit their human friends anymore? Why did Daddy and Mama have to go away to fight? Why couldn't everyone just get along like they used to? What are you really asking of me, Major Chun? David, he corrected. When I'm not in uniform, I'm just David. And what I'm asking is for you to help me save your husband's life, and the lives of 50,000 coalition soldiers who don't deserve to die for one corrupt admiral's schemes. In exchange for what? David leaned forward. We have a plan to expose Thexver's treachery to the coalition high command. But we need someone they'll believe, someone with unquestionable loyalty and honor, someone like you. They'll never believe a word I say. I'm a prisoner of war, not if you escape. Zara blinked in surprise. What? The prison transport carrying you back to coalition space is supposed to leave in 4 days. Pirates will attack it in the neutral zone, overwhelm the guards, and rescue you. You'll return to coalition space as a hero who survived human torture and escaped against impossible odds. Pirates working for you. Former coalition soldiers. Who've become disillusioned with the war, David corrected. People who've seen too much death and want it to stop. They'll be risking their lives to pull this off. Zara stood up and walked to the window, looking out at New Terra's peaceful landscape. It was hard to imagine that this beautiful world was part of the same galaxy where billions were dying in an endless war. And once I'm back, she asked, you'll have evidence of Thexver's betrayal. Communications, financial records, meeting locations. Everything you need to convince the high command that he's been playing all sides. They might not believe it. They might think it's human propaganda. That's a risk we have to take, David admitted. But right now, it's the only chance we have to prevent the Vega massacre. Zara turned back to face him. What happens to you when this is over? Won't your superiors consider you a traitor for helping me escape? David smiled sadly. There are more humans who want this war to end than you might think. Some of us have been working together for months, trying to find a way to break the cycle of violence. This isn't just my operation. A conspiracy. A hope, David corrected. A hope that maybe our species don't have to destroy each other. Zara was quiet for several minutes, weighing everything she had learned. The evidence against Thexver was overwhelming, but the path forward was fraught with danger. If she was wrong, if this was all an elaborate human deception, she would be betraying everything she had sworn to protect. But if she was right, if David was telling the truth, then her refusal to act would doom her husband and thousands of other soldiers to death. There's something else, David said quietly. Something I haven't told you yet. What? Your husband isn't just commanding a squadron in the Vega offensive. According to our intelligence, Thexver has specifically assigned him to lead the first wave assault. The most dangerous position in the entire operation. Zara felt her blood turn to ice. Why would he do that? Because coal is popular with the fleet, David explained. He's seen as honest, honorable, incorruptible. If Vexfer is planning some kind of coup after the war, Cole would be a natural leader for any opposition movement. So he wants Cole dead. It looks that way. The pieces were falling into place. Now, painting a picture that made Zara's hearts pound with rage and fear. Vexfer wasn't just a traitor selling information. He was positioning himself for something bigger, eliminating rivals and accumulating power while the galaxy burned around him. If I do this, she said slowly, if I help you expose him, what guarantees do I have that this isn't all just another layer of deception? David stood up and walked over to a cabinet in the corner of the room. He opened it and pulled out a small device that Zara recognized as a Coalition emergency beacon. This was taken from the debris of a Coalition cruiser that was destroyed last week, he said. According to our intelligence, that ship was carrying medical supplies to a refugee camp in the Outer Rim. But when we analyzed the wreckage, we found something different. He activated the device and a holographic manifest appeared in the air. Zara read through it quickly, her expression growing more horrified with each line. Biological weapons, she breathed. Designed to target human genetic markers specifically. 43 different bioweapons, all engineered to cause maximum suffering before death. David Kunf. The prison transport determination shuddered as the first pirate ship opened fire, its hull groaning under the impact of plasma bolts. Zara lay on the floor of her cell, her hands cuffed behind her back, playing the role of helpless prisoner while chaos erupted around her. "All guards to battle stations!" shouted Lieutenant Carex, the Delarian officer in charge of prisoner transport. "Protect the cargo at all costs." Through the small porthole in her cell door, Zara could see human guards scrambling through the corridors, their faces tight with fear and determination. She had to remind herself that these men and women didn't know about the plan. To them, this was a real pirate attack, and they would fight and possibly die to keep her in custody. The knowledge sat heavy in her stomach. Like a stone, the ship shook again. More violently this time, and the lights flickered. Emergency klaxons wailed throughout the vessel as the pirates pressed their attack. Zara counted 5 distinct weapon signatures, which meant David had kept his word about the size of the rescue force. Small enough to seem like desperate criminals. Large enough to get the job done, footsteps pounded past her door as crew members ran to emergency stations. She could hear weapons fire now, close and personal, which meant the attackers had managed to board the ship. The plan was working. "Prisoner lockdown protocols in effect," announced the ship's AI. "All detention cells are now sealed. Security teams maintain perimeter around level 7. But Zara knew the security teams wouldn't be able to maintain anything. The pirates had detailed schematics of the ship, knowledge of guard rotations, and professional military training. The fight would be over quickly. It was. 20 minutes after the attack began, her cell door hissed open. A figure in battered combat armor stood silhouetted in the doorway, face hidden behind a tactical visor. For a moment, Zara felt genuine fear. What if this wasn't part of the plan? What if real pirates had attacked, and she was about to be sold to the highest bidder? Then the figure spoke in accented Galactic Standard. "Commander Veltar? My name is Captain Sarah Torres, formerly of the Coalition 3rd Marines. We're here to get you home." Zara almost smiled at the irony. A human was rescuing her from other humans in order to help her save Coalition soldiers from her own admiral. The galaxy had become a very strange place. Captain Torres quickly removed Zara's restraints and handed her a set of civilian clothes. "Put these on quickly. We've disabled the ship's systems, but we don't have much time before Coalition reinforcements arrive." As Zara changed clothes, she studied Torres carefully. The human woman was smaller than David, but she moved with the precise efficiency of a professional soldier. Her equipment was well maintained, but showed signs of heavy use. And there was a wariness in her eyes that spoke of too many battles fought for causes that no longer made sense. "How many of your people were Coalition?" Zara asked. "All of us," Torres replied. "Marines, Navy, even a couple of intelligence officers who got tired of following orders from commanders who cared more about their careers than their soldiers' lives. They made their way through corridors littered with unconscious guards, and disabled security systems. Zara was relieved to see that the humans had used stun weapons rather than lethal force. Whatever else they were, these pirates still had honor. "What happened to Lieutenant Corex?" Zara asked as they passed the command deck. "Stunned and secured with the rest of the crew," Torres answered. "They'll wake up in a few hours with a story about desperate pirates who somehow managed to overwhelm a military transport. Very embarrassing for Fleet Command." They reached the docking bay where a sleek courier ship waited with its engines already warming up. The vessel was obviously stolen Coalition military hardware, but it had been modified extensively with additional armor and upgraded weapon systems. "Welcome aboard the Second Chance," Torres said as they boarded. "Not much to look at, but she's fast and she's reliable." The ship's crew consisted of 5 other former Coalition soldiers, each representing a different species. A massive Gorvani male worked the engine controls with surprising delicacy for someone with hands the size of dinner plates. A quick-fingered Proximan handled navigation while chattering nervously in her native tongue. 2 more humans managed weapons and communications, and a Kethran female who looked barely old enough for military service served as the ship's pilot. "How did you all find each other?" Zara asked as they strapped in for departure. "The Underground Railroad," replied the Kethran pilot as they lifted off. Soldiers who couldn't stomach the war anymore started making contact, sharing information, helping each other disappear. "We're not the only crew like this operating in the neutral zone. There are others." "Dozens," Torres confirmed. "Maybe hundreds. People from all 3 major powers who've decided that the real enemy isn't each other, but the leaders who keep this war going for their own benefit." The Second Chance cleared the disabled transport and jumped to hyperspace, beginning the long journey back to Coalition territory. During the 3-day trip, Zara learned more about her rescuers and their stories. Captain Torres had commanded a Marine unit during the brutal ground campaign on Zarium Prime, where Coalition and human forces had fought over a worthless rock for 8 months, while civilians starved in refugee camps. She had finally broken when her superiors ordered her to fire on a human medical convoy that was treating wounded from both sides. The Gorvani engineer, whose name was Thok, had deserted from the Coalition Navy when he discovered that his ship's captain was selling military supplies on the black market while Gorvani colonies went without basic defenses. Each of them had reached a breaking point where loyalty to their respective governments became impossible to maintain. They had found each other through a network of sympathetic contacts and decided that if their leaders wouldn't make peace, maybe ordinary soldiers could. "The hardest part," Torres explained as they shared a meal in the ship's tiny galley, "is convincing people that we're not traitors. We're just tired of being used as tools by leaders who don't care about the cost of their ambitions." "What will you do when the war ends?" Zara asked. "If it ends," corrected pilot Telmaya. "If it ends, maybe we can go home again. Maybe we can rebuild what this war destroyed." "And if it doesn't end?" Torres was quiet for a moment, staring out at the swirling patterns of hyperspace. "Then we keep doing what we're doing, saving who we can when we can. Maybe it won't change the outcome of the war, but it might change what kind of galaxy is left when the fighting stops." On the 3rd day, they dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, well within Coalition territory. A small courier ship was waiting for them, its Coalition markings genuine and its crew loyalists who had helped arrange Zara's escape. "This is where we part ways," Torres said as they prepared for transfer. "Your ride home is waiting." Zara felt an unexpected sadness as she prepared to leave the Second Chance. These humans had risked their lives to save her, and she might never see them again. "Captain Torres," she said formally, "I want you to know that you and your crew have restored my faith in the possibility of honor, even in the darkest times." Torres smiled sadly. "Just make it count, Commander. Make sure the people who need to hear the truth actually get to hear it." The transfer was completed quickly, and soon Zara was aboard a Coalition ship heading for the capital world of Kether Prime. But now came the most dangerous part of the mission. She had to convince the High Command that their most decorated admiral was a traitor. Using evidence provided by their enemies, the coalition leadership was not known for their willingness to question established authority. Admiral Keshtar, Supreme Commander of Coalition Forces, received Zara in his private office overlooking the crystal spires of the capital city. He was an elderly Kethran with silver-white skin and eyes that had seen too many wars, and his expression was carefully neutral as she presented her evidence. "These are serious accusations, Commander," he said after reviewing the recordings and documents she had brought. "Admiral Vexver is a hero of the Coalition. To suggest that he is collaborating with our enemies borders on treason." "With respect, sir, the evidence speaks for itself," Zara replied. "The recordings, the financial transfers, the intelligence that only someone at the highest levels could have provided to human forces." "Evidence that comes from human sources," Keshtar pointed out. "How do we know this isn't an elaborate deception designed to turn us against our own commanders?" It was the question Zara had been dreading. How could she explain that she had come to trust a human more than her own admiral? How could she convey the certainty she felt that David Chun had been telling the truth? "Sir, the attack plan for the Vega offensive that the humans provided, it's completely accurate. Down to the smallest details that only a handful of people could have known. Which proves they have intelligence sources. Not necessarily that Dexver is one of them." Zara took a deep breath and played her final card. "Admiral, what if we could set up a test? Feed Dexver false information and see if it makes its way to human forces?" Keshtar leaned back in his chair, considering. "That would be dangerous. If you're wrong, we'd be compromising legitimate operations. And if I'm right, we'd be saving the 50,000 soldiers scheduled to die in his trap." For several long minutes, the Admiral,